The summer of 1914 was unlike any other. Across the vast continent of Europe, a fever was spreading. It was not a sickness of the body, but of the mind. A wave of fervent, almost delirious patriotism swept through the cities and towns of the German Empire. For millions of young men, the impending conflict was not a looming tragedy. It was seen as a grand and glorious adventure. They called it the Great War. The name itself held a promise of heroism and legend. This romantic vision of conflict was particularly potent among the youth, pressured by their elders, their teachers, men like Kantorek. He preached duty, honor, and the fatherland. They believed in the nobility of the cause. They were eager to become heroes. They had no idea they were marching toward a vast, unmarked grave. Their romantic delusion lasted precisely 10 weeks. That was the length of their basic training. 10 weeks under men like Corporal Himmelstoss, where the glory was stripped away, replaced by meaningless cruelty and the raw, animalistic obedience of a soldier. Their innocence was the first casualty. Then came the Western Front, the trench line, a 400-mile scar of mud, blood and steel, that separated Germany from the world it knew. Here, Paul and his friends were no longer students. They were simply a company of men, reduced to instinct. Their only education that mattered was given by the front itself, and by a cunning, practical veteran named Kaczynski, or Kat. Kat was the man who could find food in a barren field, predict a barrage by the sound of the enemy's guns. He was their teacher now. The front was a world of non-stop horror. Artillery shells, poison gas, the screams of wounded horses. The life of a soldier became a simple, brutal calculation. Survival. They learned to shut down the part of the mind that felt pity, grief, or fear. To think was to die. To feel was to break. The first death shatters their youthful ideals. Each loss is a piece of their old selves gone forever. When one friend dies, his prized possession, a pair of marching boots, is immediately passed to the next man. Not out of callousness, but out of a desperate practical need to survive one more day. The boots will be needed. The moment that changes Paul forever happens in a shell hole, caught between the lines. He is forced to kill a French soldier, but in the hours that follow, trapped with the dying man, the enemy is no longer a uniform. Paul sees the man's face, his possessions, a letter to a wife, photographs of a family. He realizes a devastating truth. This man is an ordinary printer, a man like his own father, who was forced into a uniform, just like him.
Why do they never tell us that you are poor devils like ourselves, that your mothers are just as anxious as ours, and that we have both the same fear of death?
For Paul, the war is no longer a battle against an enemy nation, but a crime against a shared humanity. There is no glory in the trenches, only a universal, agonizing suffering. He returns to his line, changed, knowing the man he killed was his own reflection. When Paul is granted leave, he finds a world he no longer belongs to. His hometown is full of armchair patriots, old men who pontificate on strategy, who demand more fighting, more glory. They simply cannot comprehend the reality of the front. The physical distance is small, but the emotional gulf is vast. The civilians safe at home are the lost generation who betrayed them. They sent the young men to die for empty words. Paul cannot speak to his own family. His past is gone.
His future is the trench. I am young, I am 20 years old. Yet I know nothing of life but despair, death, fear, and the combination of superficiality with an abyss of suffering.
The months drag on. The German army is collapsing. The ultimate futility of the war becomes agonizingly clear as Paul watches his remaining comrades fall. The group, the source of his only humanity, is being systematically destroyed. And then, Kat, the most resourceful, the father figure. He is killed not by a magnificent blast, but by a small, unremarkable fragment of shrapnel, while Paul carries him to safety. The war chews up its victims in the most random, insignificant ways.
Kat is dead. I would not have stirred a finger to save myself, but all the same I free my arms, and with a grip that is a last desperate greeting, I hold his head against me.
The armistice is declared. The war is over. The fighting stops. The trenches fall silent. On a day of final, profound quiet, October 1918, a matter of weeks before the peace, the last entry in his journal is made. Paul Boehmer is killed. A single, short, almost casual final casualty. The official report for that day simply read, "All quiet on the Western Front." For the lost generation of World War I, there was no glory. There was only the brutal, absolute truth of the trenches. This is the story of how an entire generation was destroyed by a war that was never theirs.